Hey guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to be discussing the new Regiments of Renown and the new heroes in the 3.1 patch here for Total War Warhammer 3. So we had a Regiment of Renown here for each of the units in front of you, plus also Harry the Hammer, who is, I absolutely love the name. So I went to go do this on different tier makers, but some of them had some... I'm not going to go into details, but basically I couldn't do it on there, so I'm doing it on Canva, and I'll move these around. So as we go through, a couple of things for discussion. I haven't used all of these units. I've looked at the tooltips. I've had some discussions with certain players that are, quite high level in the community, and we shared some opinions about what we thought the unit's benefit was to the faction, how strong the unit was in total, and how we're seeing it evolve as the game goes on. Now, this is with the unit in its current status in the 3.1 patch. That might change in the future, and of course these are just my opinions. You guys might have different ones, and if you do, please let me know down below in the comments. I would honestly love to have a discussion. I really do like talking about Warhammer, the mechanics, and how the game operates, and I really like theorizing and just learning about Warhammer more in general. So without further ado, let's crack on. So I think we'll start here with Harry the Hammer. So we'll hop into Warhammer here, and then we'll actually go into the units themselves. So let's talk about his 4 abilities. So we have the Foe Seeker, pretty standard, not really too useful for a foot character, but that vigor, can always be quite nice here and there. Heroic Killing Blow, fine. I think it's always quite expensive there for an ability that gives you, it is 25 seconds duration, but it's costly, that's for sure. The Bane Shield, really like this. So plus 10 melee defense here for himself, but also that negative 10% on the base weapon damage and armor piercing in a 35 meter radius, making him really, really good in blob builds. Alongside this, if he also does get surrounded in these blob builds, the Hammer of Harry is just worth bringing just for the name, but still, it seems okay as an ability. I haven't used it myself yet, but time will tell as the game evolves how useful this is. But it seems quite expensive for potential what it might bring. Now, what does Harry, or should we say Harold here, Hammerstorm, what does he bring to the mixture? Well, the main one here is the Bane of the Dead. So for those that don't know this, 35 meter radius of remove the undead attribute. Now this is kind of crazy. Negative 4 leadership as well. So imagine zombies that are no longer undead. Yeah, kind of a strange one there to really go through. So they already have really crappy leadership thanks to being undead. And also they're going to get even more leadership removed. Plus they're going to get debuffed if you take his shield there. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this makes him incredibly useful up against other undead factions. So the Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, Vampire Coast. And I'm sure there is, some really, really nice elements you can have with blob builds with him, partnering him alongside Prince Sigvald with all those debuffs, and I'm sure other lords, etc. as well. It's there's certainly something fun to have here with Harold Hammerstorm. He really does bring quite a lot to the party. These melee stats as well are really nothing to shy away from. 120 armor with that silver shield, so 55% block arms in his direction, plus an extra 15% missile resistance. He's a missile magnet, and he will certainly absorb quite a lot. He's also unbreakable, gives encourage, and causes terror. This guy is a walking nightmare, but of course you do pay for it. If we take everything off and for example we just go with the Bane Shield, he's quite expensive. He is quite expensive, but he brings a lot. Terror, unbreakable, Bane of the Dead is certainly really good up against undead factions. Good melee stats as well, 70 melee attack, 60 melee defense here with the Bane Shield as well. Armor piercing with good weapon strength, good charge bonuses, and actually pretty decent speed considering how much armor he's actually carrying is quite scary. You can see other counterparts here with the Chosen, which have a similar level of armor, only at 28 speed. So of course, being a hero, it's going to be relatively quick on foot. This makes me, for Harry, Harold indeed is certainly a very, very strong character. So if we go back here, I think Harold is, he's going to be out there. I think he has potential to be in the S tier. Of course, there's lots that I could talk about throughout the entirety, go into lots of decent, like detailed matchups, for example. But what I'd like to say is I'd like to keep this as short as possible. And if you want me to go into any other detail, we can in a further video. But I think he really does benefit the faction. Vampire counts specifically, like, were really good against Chaos, and it was very much Vampire count favored, and having him in and around is very, very powerful. Now, I don't believe the only one sore spot for me is I don't think he's in the Khorne roster. No, he's not. Maybe because it would leave the Exalted Hero of Khorne out of it. Is he in here as well? He's not. So it looks like it, maybe that's the trade-off there. You have to bring Chaos to have him. But listen, I'm happy we have him than not have him at all. But yeah, I certainly think for me, the man, the myth, the legend here is certainly going to be in the S tier. He brings a nice element to undead gameplay. And players really have to build around this guy now because he is a serious threat. He's a debuff machine. He walks through, and all undead factions just should be scared of him. They really, really should be scared. That's why I think he's S tier. I think he has the potential to be really incredibly powerful, but of course he is expensive. Blob builds are really designed for him, and perhaps we could see some big changes here in the meta with him coming forward. So now we'll move on to the Gnoblars. So nice to see Ogre Kingdoms getting some changes. A really fun faction. I really do like the Ogre Kingdoms. They're super fun to play. So you can see 150 gold cost in total increase compared to the regular Gnoblar Trappers. And you can see here the Bogglars of the Mad Marshes. Stat and bonuses alone. So you can see 10 leadership, 6 melee attack, 8 melee defense, and 3+ bonus on the missile strength. Now that alone is probably almost 150 gold in itself. Some of those bonuses are excellently nice. That +10 leadership really does help here for these bad boys. But now we're going to dive into some of the extras. We're going to be having poison for the missile strength as well as the other poison contact on melee as well, which is super nice. Super nice indeed. Plus they also have a bonus versus infantry. It is only 5. But still, nonetheless, very happy about that. That's really going to help deal with some of those cheaper levels of chaff. So after they've used those missiles, they can then get in and also do some extra damage with poison. It is really quite nice. Also coming in with the Vanguard deployment, all the extra stuff as well. They don't have the Gnoblar Trappers, but they do have this Water Birth ability. Now, it is really, really unique, I have to say. Really unique. But they do replenish when in water. And also they can add new combatants, so they can bring back from the dead, and that's quite a lot of healing. 0.8% per second, that's quite a lot. So incredibly unique, but I still think it's better to have it than not. It certainly makes this unit very, very interesting, and it's quite a nice one here, I must say. For the ogres, having units that are infantry size is quite rare within the roster, but having something that's so cheaply increasing on top of the regular Gnoblars and Gnoblar Trappers, but that it's just better infantry in total, is really quite valuable here for the Ogre Kingdom roster. So for me, I think this is quite an important unit. As we well know, fighting on top of each other so we dissipate that damage for some of the bigger Ogre Balls, the Iron Guts, etc. is very, very handy, and it's what Ogre Kingdoms do so well. So having stronger units with the Bogglars, for me is a big must for the faction. Other fights as well, like going up against Dwarfs, for example, and dealing with things such as Slayers, also really important. So having that poison in contact, that bonus as infantry, plus the missiles, really good at dealing with those niche units that otherwise Ogre Kingdoms really struggle with. So for me, these bad boys probably going to be finding themselves somewhere in and around the A tier. That's something what I think. And what I'll do, I'll keep them separated there so we can see them. But I think the A tier, I really quite like them. They're super cheap, nice bonus in stats. You would take them anyway just for the poison and bonus. But you also get anti-infantry, healing and water. I just think they look awesome. I think functionally they do well in the roster. Yeah, I think A tier is quite nice for me. So now we're going to move on to the Fleshounds. Now this is a very interesting one. I think a little bit... lots of people have opinions on this, but whether it's good, whether it's bad, there's lots to say. So Fleshounds in general are quite expensive for a harass chase-off unit, but, you know, they are particularly good at what they do. If you don't have magic damage, 30 armor plus physical resistance, super fast, vanguard deployment, they cause fear, and they have decent weapon stats overall. You know, they can challenge up against a lot of light armored cavalry, and they can be a general nuisance in total. So what do we get for the new Fleshhound? So 10 leadership, really good there for demonic unit. Plus we're also going to be getting increase in melee attacks, melee defense, and a bunch more. So they're already super fast at 95 speed, so most skirmish cavalry will struggle here up against these bad boys. But they also have immune to contact effects, so they cannot be poisoned, which is incredibly interesting. So, you know, skirmish archers that have poison no longer are going to be able to outrun the Fleshhounds. So the Hounds of the Blood Hunt are certainly good at chasing, or even better now at chasing down skirmish cavalry. But, you know, for 1,000 gold to chase down skirmish cavalry is certainly an interesting one. Now, something that benefits even more is going to be that Gore Feast. So when they are engaged in melee, they will be healing, and this is by far their best ability. It makes them incredibly good for the late game, because that's exactly where you want them. You want them harassing units in the mid game. They are going to take damage, that's just the way that the game goes out. But in the later stage, especially in land battles, clearing out units at the edge of the map is going to be incredibly important, because not only do you chase them off, but also you will be regenning in combat. Keeping as many units as possible is super nice here for this. So I must say, incredibly strong. And now the last one. Now this one I think has flown under the radar just a little bit, but Dampen is also super nice. So not for the spell resistance, but removing magical attacks. So when you're engaged in a unit, you really want to benefit from that physical resistance because you pay for it. So when you're engaged in melee, reducing, or should we say removing that magical attack means we can always benefit from that physical resistance. So if we do get kited with magic, of course we'll take that damage until we engage in melee, but still it's super nice. So what do I think for the unit overall? I think it's really nice. I think if you have 250 gold, I think this is not a must bring, but if you are going to bring 4 Fleshhounds, you definitely want to consider the Regiment of Renown. At least I'm going to, because having that Gore Feast to chase off units with healing, you know, immune to poison kite, removing that magical damage, so we definitely get that physical resistance. For me, really nice, and also can really bolster around the rest of the faction. So for example, if you're fighting with Bloodletters in the front line and this unit has magic, bang, in come the Fleshhounds, they remove that physical resistance comes in, Bloodhounds fighting better. Excellent stuff, that's what we like to see. So I think overall, the Hounds are, I think, flying slightly under the radar, but they are expensive. So that there is really something to take into consideration. But things like the Wood Elves, which I believe they do pretty well against anyway, could also be quite nice. You know, having those skirmish archer units on horseback that have poison means you're not going to be able to run here against the Fleshhound. So I think the Fleshhound is going to be somewhere in the B region. I think they're strong. I think they're good, but I do think they're expensive. So moving on to the next one is going to be the Archers for Cathay. Another one as well that I think a few people here were not sure where to put it. It's a very interesting one, considering the limited ways that Grand Cathay can play. No matter how strong they are limited. The Bandits of the Silver Road certainly have some amazing bonuses compared to their regular peasant archers. So where do we start? Well, let's look at those ginormous melee stat increases. 17 melee attack and 18 melee defense. What on God's green earth is that? That is absolutely absurd. Plus you're going to get a good amount of leadership bonuses. Charge bonus, I don't really care. +9, fine, it's actually pretty decent, but like it's not really what I'm looking for the unit. But you also get +3 missile strength. Now that's increased even more. So when we take into effect that we have flammable, that's also going to increase by 20% on that missile damage. Because of course we are going to have flaming ammunition, which makes this a nice rare unit up against factions that have lots of healing, regeneration, etc. So I do quite like this unit. Now if we compare it to the regular peasant archers, we also get vanguard deployment. Now, and that also is partnered with woodsmen. Now a lot of people might go, well, I don't really see the benefit of that. And in land battles, absolutely. I don't know what I see the benefit for. Unless you're going to vanguard them into trees, I don't know. But especially in domination, which is what I think this has been built for, there's a lot of vanguard deployment sections that are in trees. So you could certainly see them being summoned into trees, walking through, firing quickly, and causing some damage on the battlefield. So I can certainly see them having that application there, but of course any ability is always nice. And I think the Vanguard deployment kind of shows what's going to come for patch 4, with maybe some more Vanguard units for Cathay. They don't have a super amount, so like Peasant Horseman is one of the few. I'm sure there's some others that I'm missing somewhere. Perhaps not many actually. And that's it, you know, adding that as well to Domination. Also even land battles to a certain degree. Vanguard certainly offers some different kind of game style plays. One thing that would have been nice from a land battle point of view with these would have been Stalk. I wouldn't have minded making these 700, adding in Stalk. They would have resembled the Regiment of Renowned Archers there from the Empire. Overall, I think the Bandits, for 225 gold, those stats alone are super nice. Also, you have the effect where they can add now that nice fire rate up against healing units with regen, etc. Certainly makes them worth it in my case. If you want to take some archers, sure, but in most box builds, you know, they're not going to be as tanky as your Jade Warriors, Jade Warrior Shields. In those type box builds, I don't know what application you're going to have. I think it's going to be a much rarer unit, but I still think it has some application in a very rare sense. So if we go over here, I'm thinking it's probably got to be a C unit. So for now, what we'll do is we'll stick it here. I think C. I might come back and change some of these. So hold your horses. Make sure you watch the whole video before you make a comment. But so far, I'm thinking C. I think it's a really nice bonus. It could be B. It could be B. I'll have to think. I think it's very unique. I think it's very unique. And I have to say here, whilst we're talking about this subject, we're looking at land battles mostly. But domination is also something I am taking into consideration. So let's go here with the Kossars. Now, the Kossars are an interesting one. I personally love them. I think they're insane. I am head, shield, and toes all over these guys. Like, they look so amazing, and I really do like Kislev. I just the Watchman of the Night as well. Sorry, in the Night. Amazing name. I absolutely love them. And it really hurts me. I don't know where to put them. I don't know what to think about them. I don't know if they offer anything whatsoever to Kislev. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody in the comments is going to go, wow, Logic, you didn't think about this specific scenario with that unit and this and that and that. And I'm like, no, I probably didn't. But at the same time, I don't know. So the couple of units we really want to consider are Zargard and Armored Kossar. So let's have a look at the bonuses. So that 16 bonus on weapon strength is ginormous. Plus, you're also going to get that bonus versus infantry is 5, I think. Yeah, bonus versus infantry of 5. So it's not huge, but at the same time, it means it's still going to have good application against things that aren't infantry, which is also nice. So they're not too much of just a strictly unique unit. We do have an interesting ability here of Frostbite. Not particularly good there on an infantry unit. I guess it means if a unit breaks, it can't run away too far. I mean, 30 speed, they're not super quick, so maybe, I'm not sure. But you can see the stats, 16 weapon strength, 9 melee attack, no melee defense increase. So of course, you know, you're going to get exactly the same, but you lose a shield. Shield's really nice on the Kossars. You also lose the pistols. You do get some nice leadership bonuses. So you can see the leadership there, 75 is going to be on the same level of the Zargard. What else do we get? So Frenzy is going to be really good for bolstering those stats, you know, weapon strength, base weapon damage, charge, melee attack, immune to psychology as well. But that's also coming in the form of Rabble Rouse. Now, this is most famously known for being on the Greenskin roster, and it's really useful against some of the undead factions. However, here, is it useful? I'm not too sure. So, Buy Our Blood is also a really good ability for 30 seconds there, that when they do break, they become unbreakable. Now, I guess maybe it's nice that when that's popped off, they come back, they have immune to psychology again, so it's really hard just to terror out Kislev. It's really in the name, it's really for the faction, it's really quite lore thematic, and I enjoy that. I really enjoy that about them. I just don't know if the Watchmen in the Night are going to give any better anti-infantry or cheap anti-infantry abilities than Zargard Great Weapons or Zargard in general. So if we look at them compared to Zargard have more armor as well, which is something else to take into consideration. They have better charge bonus, but overall worse stats. And when you also do include the fact they have Frenzy, they do get those bonus to stats. I think they're going to be a really good cheap chaff clearer. They're going to blitz through that kind of thing. I just don't know if that's exactly what Kislev needed. So, is it a nice unit? Absolutely. I think it's a really strong unit. 300 gold for it? Tough to say. Tough to say. I think if I had the money and I couldn't spend 300 gold on anything else, I'd probably include it. It's not one of those units that I'm going to dive out in the dark and go, I must use this unit. This unit is going to be vital in this matchup. I'm sure there's one out there that it is. I'm sure it's really good in that specific matchup, like maybe against greenskins, against good mid-tier infantry. I'm sure this absolutely blitzes through them. But overall, I'm not sold. I love the name. I think the unit's really cool, really lore thematic. I just don't know if it offers what I would want it to offer for the Kislev roster. So for that reason, it really pains me. It really pains me, but it is going to be a D. And this is all in relation to each other. I love the unit, as I said. I don't know what it benefits for Kislev. And this moves us on to Nurgle for Nurglings. So another one that I'm also a little bit bemused by. And I might change that Kislev one. I'll have a think about it. But if we move on to Nurgle and we go on to the Frolickers Bubonic, which love the name. And I love everything about Nurgle. If you know me, I'm a big Nurgle fan. So 200 gold. Pretty cheap upgrade, I have to say. And not the cheapest, which is also why I really like those Gnoblars. Really, really cheap upgrade. But look at those stats. For 200 gold, it's not exactly amazing. 10 leadership, sure, fine. That's actually pretty good for them being a demonic unit. But 7 melee attack, 7 melee defense. It's not exactly huge. Many of the other regiments from Renown were actually pretty decent. So what else you get for your 200 gold? Well, that's the question. You get here the Blister Back, which is a melee damage reflection of 10 and then an increase in leadership, which is also quite nice, but you have to, of course, be engaged in melee. Now, there's not many units there's not many factions that are forced into just melee. The only real one I can think of is, for example, the Vampire Counts. I could see this being good here. It could, maybe delete zombies pretty quickly. That's certainly a potential, but, they don't really hit very hard against you. Both of these have Vanguard. Nothing else really changes. I don't really know what your 200 gold spends for, apart from the Blister Back. I guess if you're taking, sort of 5 of these and you've got 200 gold, maybe? But of course they have no armor, so there's no reason you couldn't just shoot them with cheap archers or skirmish cavalry. Just delete them very, very quickly, or just a nice wind spell down the line would delete them just the same. And a lot of what you pay for with a Blister Back is incredibly unique. You have to get them engaged in melee, and I think even sustained melee then for that duration. Outside of that, I'm not sure what I see. I think by far probably the weakest of the group here that we have. So I don't think I need to say much more about that, really. I think it's going to sit in D pretty comfortably. Yeah, I think it's going to sit in D. And I think this makes me think these two are a little bit harsh. Yeah, I think I'm going to change that now. I think I'm going to put this up here. And I think I'm going to put this here. I think this is just by far the worst. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan. And now this leads us on to a very controversial one. A lot of people, I think, really underestimate just how powerful this unit is. So the Chromatic Abominations, the Regiment of Renown Blue Horrors. So let's rack through these from a stat perspective. Lots of stat increase. So you can see here, 250 gold. The last lot were 200, and you already got the same stats. So 10 leadership, melee attack, melee defense at 7. They also get a bonus of plus 12 to their ammunition. Plus 12, that's absurd. Plus extra missile strength. The same there, fire and magic damage are excellent stuff overall. So already already pretty good there on paying for just those stat increases. Now, let's look at what else we get. So we're going to see here immediately we also get this bronze shield. It's only 10%, but it's a 360-degree missile block. That's all directions, which is interesting. That's with and without shield. And we then also have the barrier boost. Now, this thing is absurd. It is so absurd that I do not think it's been touched on enough. So this replenishes barrier for combatants every single time a friendly or enemy spell is cast. And that is for every single second that it is being cast. So if you do an overgrowth for 30 seconds, yeah, at 4% per second, 3 lots of 4, 120%. Yeah. Absurd. Things like regrowth, that's just one spell. That's just one spell. Yeah, this barrier boost, and if you play these boys correctly with their kiting potential of extra ammunition, extra damage, higher leadership values as well, physical resistances. Wow. Yeah, I could see this in the hands of certain players being absolutely filthy. Yeah, I really don't know what to say about this unit. I think this unit has unlimited potential. And I think it's up there with the strongest, if not joint strongest unit here in today's look-in. And I really think it is quite powerful. And you should really be watching out for this unit in the future. I think it's going to be scarily good. But then I'll be very interested to know what you guys think. Perhaps there's some limitations that I've not considered. But I think it's got to be up there on the S tier. I think they're very, very strong. And it makes me super excited to see just what people are going to get up to with these bad boys. Yeah. I think actually this is the nice boost that Tzeentch needed. So now we go on to Slaanesh, the very last one. So Slaanesh. So we have here the Princes of Perfection. Perfect name. Excellent. Like that. So against the regular deroted Marauders of Slaanesh, the Spear variant, pretty standard on the stats. So for 250 gold, better stats than some of the others that we've seen. So 10 leadership, making up to 70, which is pretty high. 8 there on the melee attack, 9 on the melee defense. And you can see they're going from bronze to silver shield. So they're going to be going from 35 to 55%, so that plus 20%. Now, why is that interesting? Well, lots of reasons. One of the main reasons is going to be Perfect Vigor. Now, I really like Perfect Vigor. Perfect Vigor, especially during that exhausted state, you can lose up to 30% of your melee attack. Now, you can just entirely forget that with Perfect Vigor, because you always stay in that top tier shape, which is also super nice. It is super nice to have that, especially with the unit that also has high melee defense, plus here with the Spaphoric Musk, giving other players lower melee attack and also lower melee defense. Overall, this is a unit that, although it isn't quite designed to play in the style of Slaanesh, they very much rush, smash, kill very quickly. This unit is one of the units that, if you want it to be slightly cheaper but have a long duration, it's a pretty nice upgrade. It doesn't really benefit the faction in the way that most people are currently playing it. However, I think there's lots of nice elements that tie in together that work really nicely with each other. They're really reflect of each other really well, I have to say. Slightly tankier with high melee defenses, good leadership, Spaphoric Musk as well. Really, you might say that's 46 melee defense. It's really quite nice there. And just overall really helps fight, because quite a lot of cavalry units don't have much melee defense. So they can certainly break through quite quickly. So that's going to be bonus does 15. I don't know if it's any different to the regular. No, it doesn't look to be. So still, nonetheless, I think this unit is going to be quite good. Strider, is that another effect as well? No, it looks like they both have Strider. But still, nonetheless, I think a good unit. I don't think amazing. I think good. And I think overall, probably C tier. The bottom end of C tier, I have to say. I wouldn't say it really benefits the faction the way you'd want it to. I'd say it's okay. It's quite a nice addition. I think overall, this is where I'm looking at most units. Quite like Harry. I think he's going to do very well. Really brings a new style of play against the undead for Chaos. Blue Horrors. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what you absolute mentalists do with this thing, because I think they're going to be incredibly powerful. Gnoblars, really nice bonus there for the Ogre Kingdoms. Fleshounds, just overall a good bonus unit. That healing is super nice. I'm almost tempted to put it into A tier. I'm really tempted just to fuck it up here, because I think compared to the rest it's better. I might even do that, actually. I might even do that. I think it's a really nice unit. It is expensive, but the fact it can heal in combat, and it can heal whilst chasing units off, is super nice. It can't be affected by poison. It has dampen, so reduces all magical attacks, just increasing its tankiness, and also healing as well. It's such a nice supplementation. Archers, quite unique, but still much stronger on the melee stats. They can fight quite nicely. It's very, very interesting. I think this is probably how I see it. I think actually this is exactly how I'm going to leave it. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Nice little breakdown. I'd be happy to do more of these as well. If you do find a tier maker that's a little bit better than what I made here today, then of course do let me know. I made this and used it myself, just because it was the best way that I could find. Some of the other sites had some really, really weird sign-up criteria. Like one of them basically wanted full access to my Twitter, which I was not going to give it. Really quite surprised me, actually. But anyway, we won't go into details about that. But I really hope you enjoyed it. Of course, let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments, but please do be respectful to other people's opinions and thoughts. But of course, we don't know yet. We're brand new here, and there's 23 factions. There's probably going to be a faction that you use these against that you go, oh, I didn't know it'd do this well here, and it might just surprise you. So if you enjoyed this one, of course, do smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because of course it will alert you for all other videos coming forward in the future. So I've been your boy Logic. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.